something that I'm necessarily pushing or saying that I've embraced personally, but it's just something that kind of wanting to explore a little more. I just find it a little curious and very interesting. Something I've kind of thought about randomly over, I don't know, a few months, but recently started thinking about it quite a bit more. Kind of came about because I decided a few days ago to just go back and start reading through the Book of Enoch, from beginning to end, and just kind of see what stuff might pop out at me. And as I was doing that, the thing that did start popping out at me was how many times, it talks about how Enoch basically is being taken all around the earth and shown all these things, and had the luminaries and the portals and the firmament and all the stuff. And at some point he's taken to various ends of the earth, right? I believe he goes to the eastern edge, and then the northern edge, and then the western edge, which is pretty curious. I mean, he specifically describes seeing where the firmament meets the earth, and there's like where these gates where the stars come out, and also talks about like portals for the winds, right? So you see the four directions being basically, it's really hard to read the Book of Enoch and not come away from it having to admit that what it's describing is that the cardinal directions, what we call the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, these are basically describing ultimate, terminus points on each four, corners or ends of the flat world, as opposed to, the concept that I think most of us who are in this flat earth, we're building flat earth models and things where, we typically just kind of, it's like the AE, the AE projection map where the north is the North Pole, and so we keep that from the globe model, and then the south is just the whole outer ring, and then east and west, are just basically opposing directions going around the disk, right? So the only one of those four that has an actual specific, end point would be the northern pole underneath the Polaris, right? So the other three are really just they're just relative to that, okay? So it's interesting to ponder this idea, because when we think about how much the heliocentric model has skewed other things, like the size and distance of the sun, moon, and stars, and what the shape of all the continents are and everything, various distances, especially as you get towards the outer parts. If it can just distort all those things that much, then it is really curious to consider the idea that the way that we even reckon things like north, south, east, and west, are we really making just another assumption and attributing those things in terms of this just basically all around the pole star, right? And I'm not saying that I don't think that there is a pole, and that all the stars and sun, moon, circumnavigate around it, and that there's obviously a magnetic pole and all that. But what I'm saying is that as I started to, just read through Enoch, thinking about this specific issue, and then also thinking about a lot of various points in the Bible too, which seem to kind of leave it, it's not really terribly specific. And and you never actually hear that I can think of where the direction of north is specifically tied to the North Star. And obviously they knew about the North Star and used it for navigation and all that. But there are places in the Bible too where it seems like, east and west are being more referred to as, specific endpoint, ends of the world, ends of the map, instead of just, relative directions to each other and relative to that north point in the middle. And now this is interesting too, because as I was thinking about this, I started reading more online, and just even right here on Wikipedia, under the article for cardinal directions, there's a subheading for cardinal directions in world cultures. Okay, and it actually says this. It says many cultures not descended from European traditions use cardinal directions, but have a number other than 4. Typically, a centered direction is added for a total of 5. Isn't that interesting? Now, rather than the Western use of direction letters, properties such as colors are often associated with the various cardinal directions. These are typically the natural colors of human perception rather than primary colors. Some examples are shown here. In many regions of the world, prevalent winds change direction seasonally, and consequently many cultures associate specific named winds with cardinal and intercardinal directions. The classical Greeks personified these winds as anemoi, and then it goes on. So, isn't that crazy that, like, this the concept of a center direction? Because it also, and the interesting thing too is that the more you look at it, like in Enoch, it definitely seems to present these four cardinal directions as being very interconnected with these 4 winds, right? It talks about the houses of the winds, or storehouses of the winds, as well as, in Enoch there's angels that are basically kind of in charge over all sorts of things, and equating that with the luminaries and such. And then there's the angels of the winds, and even the Bible talks about the angels of the 4 winds. And so you see all these sort of overlapping terms and concepts that seem to be used very interconnectedly, and I don't know, and part of me wonders if that's maybe also what is being seen when we look in the book of Ezekiel, when he sees these 4 just amazing creatures with the 4 faces and the wheels within the wheels, and they have all the touching wings and all that. And it, when you read that in the King James, they're absolutely underneath the firmament, and God's throne is above the firmament there in Ezekiel. So that's definitely another portion of the scripture that's indicative of this enclosed cosmology. So I don't know if those are also maybe just another depiction of those angels of the 4 winds, but either way, I just find this a very intriguing concept, because, do we even know maybe it doesn't really matter in terms of the modern, the present day issue of proving, whether proving the flat earth or anything like that. But I think this is more something that I guess would pertain to looking at all through the lens of ancient texts and ancient histories, and kind of trying to piece together how this big shift, this big Copernican shift, and so yeah, it should definitely be mentioned that once you start looking into this issue of the cardinal points and the cardinal directions, it absolutely bleeds into all kinds of esoteric and occult teachings and symbolism and things like that, and it can be quite a crazy rabbit hole to start diving into. And please understand that that's not what I'm advocating here, or even wanting to really emphasize here, but at the same time, it would make sense, because just like everything else, whether it's the sun, moon, stars, and the angels, and everything that might actually exist within the creation, obviously there's always a twisted, occult, perversion of those truths. And so Satan takes everything and flips them inside out and upside down, and turns them into yet some other mystery school teaching, or deep secret knowledge to try and snare people with and confuse them from the truth and from pointing back to God. So please understand that I fully recognize that sort of delineation there, and that's not what I'm trying to dabble in or anything. But I'm saying, if we're going back to whatever that original, if the Bible and Enoch really are using this concept of north, south, east, and west as terminal ends, possibly connected with terminal, gates of the winds and angels of those winds, and all these things kind of in conjunction with one another, then it would make sense that there would be a fallen angel, doctrines of demons that come along later to obscure that and pervert it and all that. So yeah, I'm not, because if you start searching for this stuff, you start finding all kinds of things in terms of Kabbalah and New Age teachings, and who knows, because when you get into this is something that had always kind of puzzled me, like learning about New World Order and the occult and all the symbolism and layers of meanings and things, and from time to time I would come across sort of weird, it's called the compass rose. I'm sure you've all seen it, and why, I never could understand why the compass rose would it all be like employed as like what that was all about in terms of its occult meaning. And it just pops up, and so now it would actually make a lot more sense that if that was actually sort of, if there was like a core nugget of cosmological truth to it, right, about the nature of the earth, and because obviously we're talking about physical realities kind of conjoining with spiritual realities and the heavenly realms, and how it's all kind of interconnected, right? I mean, that stuff is anything like that is, doesn't matter whether you're talking about Jacob's ladder or what heaven is. There's always an occult perversion of everything. So yeah, you find this all over the place, and it makes you think about, what about the Maltese, I guess it's the Maltese cross, or the Templar cross, the one we've all seen associated with the Knights Templar and Celtic crosses, and where it's just 4 equal points, and even things like the swastika, or just all kinds of mandalas, and you see this basic sort of idea of 4 quadrants, 4 points, 4 directions, all over the place, and all kinds of cultures and all kinds of shamanic traditions and different things. So it obviously there's got to be something that is being sort of played off of there, and this to me, like I said, it would make a lot of sense if this was really just the core idea that Satan was using to turn into just another little offshoot of his labyrinth of occult deception. So yeah, I'm curious what you think, because obviously it would affect what I was thinking about too, is that if basically we're superimposing sort of a carryover of heliocentric, reconfiguring in terms of the cardinal, the directions, right? If we're just superimposing that onto a flat Earth map and calling the North Pole north rather than this like fifth center directional concept, then like from a biblical standpoint, that could actually affect things like the way we interpret various biblical prophecies that have yet to be fulfilled. Like, for generations people have been debating over things like, I believe it's in Daniel, where it talks about the king of the north and the king of the south and things like this. And if we perhaps have a skewed concept of what north and south are, then that's going to affect things like that, and who knows what other